We are on to our final speaker, who is going to be Patti VanDort. Patti has worked at Holland Hospital since 1987, when she joined the staff as a nurse. She held various nursing leadership positions until joining the executive team in 2001 as the Vice President of Nursing and Chief Nurse Officer. In 2018, she became the Senior Vice President of Hospital Operations. She now serves as the CEO. The hospital has experienced tremendous growth during her tenure. The growth includes the addition of a special care nursery, emergence as a market leader in robotic surgery, and the development of a nationally recognized total joint replacement program. Holland Hospital consistently receives exceptional quality and patient satisfaction metrics, which has resulted in numerous state and national recognitions. Patti has also served in a variety of leadership positions for both professional organizations and in the community. As a result of her dedicated service, she was given the Michigan Nurse Leader of the Year Award. She received recognition as a Woman of Influence from Crane's Business Journal, and she received the Grand Valley Kirchhoff School of Nursing Outstanding Alumni Award. Please give a warm welcome to our final speaker, Patti VanDort.
Thank you so much. Is the clicker up there? So I am the first speaker that gets to say good afternoon. Not so sure that's a great thing. I want to make sure I get this right here. We're not clicking. There we go, maybe? All right. Hey, there it works. Thank you, Joe. So, indeed, good afternoon. It's an honor for me to be here with you today. But I do have to tell you, when I was first given the agenda for the order in which things were going to go today, and I saw that I was slated to be the last speaker, my heart sank. Not only am I following 4 amazing presenters, but I am the one thing standing between you and a free Chick-fil-A lunch. That is not a great spot to be in. And so as I was thinking about that, this is the scenario that I envisioned. I don't know if you can see it. But I saw myself at the podium, and I know it's a guy, but I could only find a cartoon, I couldn't find a cartoon with a woman speaking. But getting ready to give, my inspiring speech, and because of the free lunch, everybody left except my amazing sister-in-law, Jill, who is in the audience. She's that one person who's really loyal and ready to hear what I had to say. So thank you that it's not just Jill in the audience. And thank you for doing your stretch right at your seat and not leaving. And truly, it's just my honor to be able to talk to you for a little bit this morning and build upon what these amazing 4 speakers have already said. I really could stand up here and essentially just say ditto because they have shared so much knowledge and so much experience. And so thank you again for sticking with it. And I'm going to share with you my perspectives today and 3 different things that I'd like to share. And I was just talking to Trent, who had to leave, and I worshiped at the church Trent served at for a long time. And he would be so proud, so I'm disappointed he's left because I have like a 3-point sermon. And that is like, a good reformed message to pass along. So thank you for allowing me to do this. I was talking with my dad last night. My dad's 84 years old. And was telling him what I was doing today. And he said, oh, did you have AI write your speech for you? I'm like, number 1, I didn't even know he knew what AI was. And number 2, I certainly don't know how to use it. And so, no, I'm really trying to share these things from my heart today. And I'll do that by sharing with you a little bit about my story and then a little bit about the Holland Hospital story. So growing up, I mentioned my dad, but I have very supportive parents growing up. And, they really instilled in me from a young age, you can be anything you want to be. I later learned that's a little bit of a lie because what I really wanted to be is not Travis World, but what I really wanted to do was to be an ESPN sportscaster because that's my passion. I am all about the sports. And I quickly learned I think that be anything you want to be is not really true, because it certainly wasn't part of God's plan for me to work at ESPN. But from that early age, they certainly did instill in me, Patti, you got to make a difference in this world. I grew up in a household of Christian faith, and making a difference was, again, instilled at me at a very young age. And I kind of translate that as I grew up in my own faith as, Patti, I'm responsible to be salt and light. And so if I read to you Matthew 5, verses 13 through 16 today, and just remind you, you are the salt of the earth. But what good is salt if it's lost its flavor? Can you make it salty again? It will be thrown out and trampled underfoot as worthless. You are the light of the world, like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand where it gives light to everyone in the house. In that same way, let your good deeds shine out for all to see, so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father. So the career you chose, or the work you do, is one opportunity, and there are many more in your personal life as well, but it's one opportunity to live out this verse, and that's how I've chosen to look at that. So maybe if you only remember one thing I share with you today, it's this. Think about how you can be salt and you can be light, because then indeed you will be that one person who's making a difference. And that was my focus as I chose my career path. So my story is of one of intentional pursuit. Read that as my plans for my life. And then the second piece was an unintentional leadership opportunity. Read that as God's plan for my life. And then the third one is about how in my role today, I try to be intentional about the leader that I am and the leader that we have in our organization. So as I thought about being salt and light and making a difference, one of the most cherished professions is nursing. And so I decided at a pretty young age I wanted to be a nurse. And so I went to college to do that. And I went to Grand Valley, and you guys are probably already doing math, but I went to Grand Valley for my undergraduate when it was called Grand Valley State College, not Grand Valley State University. So I got my undergrad there. I later wound up getting my graduate degree there as well. But following graduation, I went to work at Holland Hospital. So again, doing the math, I've been there almost 40 years now. And I spent the first part of my tenure, about 5 or 6 years or so, as a med-surg oncology nurse, providing direct care to cancer patients, most of it on the night shift. And let me tell you, if there are any night shift is a cool shift to work. Except for the sleeping part, it's a really great time because there's no one else there except for you and your patients, right? So it's a great opportunity to really, again, make a difference in the lives of the patients you're taking care of. And I really did love that clinical role. It was both challenging but extremely satisfying. And because nursing is a 365-day a week, 24-hour-a-day gig, I'd also begun to pursue a graduate degree in nursing because I didn't want to work nights, weekends, and holidays for the rest of my life, as many of my nursing colleagues can attest to. So I began pursuing a graduate degree in nursing education because I thought, yeah, that's what I'll do. When I'm done at the bedside, I'll teach nursing to new nurses and make a difference in that way. And that was my plan. So I began my graduate degree. And then one day, truly, it was like out of the clear blue, completely unintentional, my manager approached me and said, hey, Patti, we have a position called an evening shift supervisor, patient care coordinator is what we call it in our organization. And it's a management role that's there when the rest of us leaders aren't there. They're the ones working with that second shift and that third shift, providing that support. And one of those nursing shift supervisors was going to be going on a medical leave of absence. And she asked me, I had no idea why, would you be willing to fill in and do that job while she's on her medical leave of absence? As I thought about it, I thought, hey, I'll try new things. I'm up for it. Okay, I'll do it. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm telling you the truth. After one shift, I fell in love with leadership. And after 6 weeks in that role, I switched my graduate major, from nursing education to nursing and healthcare administration. And my career trajectory changed completely. It was shortly after that I became the nursing manager of that very unit that I had worked on for those previous 5 years. We could do a whole talk on, and I'm sure some of you have experienced it, what it's like to be the peer one day, the colleague one day, and the boss the next day. That's an interesting transition as well, probably one of the hardest transitions I've made. But that manager role is followed then by serving in roles in the organization of director, vice president. I was the chief nursing officer, the president, and then just 2 years ago became the CEO. So back to this notion of unintentional leadership opportunities, I did not formally apply for any of the positions I held at Holland Hospital except for that original staff nurse position. I think I worked hard, I hope I did, but folks, what I experienced was true blessing with opportunities to advance professionally and serve my organization in various roles. What I did was I took the risk to say yes when these opportunities came about. And so I learned, and I encourage you, not to be afraid to step out in faith, beyond your comfort zone, because God has a purpose and a plan that's greater for your life than you could ever imagine. And his plan is indeed intentional. So it's not unusual for people to ask me if I miss bedside nursing. And I think it's kind of an odd question because it's truly a moot point, because our chief nurse officer is sitting in the audience today, and I guarantee you she knows that I am in no way clinically competent to return to the bedside to do nursing. So even if I do miss it and want to get back to it, I couldn't do it anyway. But yes, I do miss that. I miss that connection. And what I miss probably most, because we all want to be and feel rewarded in the career we do, I miss that immediate gratification of a patient and the difference you make in that person's life at a time when they are at their most vulnerable. I miss the hugs that came from the patients who said, "Thank you so much for what you did for me." Because let's face it, I know there are other CEOs, presidents, leaders in this room. I don't get too many hugs as being a CEO right now. But despite that, it's been my great privilege to serve as a leader at Holland for the past 3 decades. And I do hope that in some way I've made a difference. All right. So while my professional journey wasn't intentional, to be an effective leader, I believe you need to be very intentional. And the first textbook that I had in my graduate studies in my organizational leadership class was called The Leadership Challenge, circa 1991. All right, let's see it. Who wasn't even born yet in 1991? I knew there would be some. But what this book does is highlight the strategies necessary to get extraordinary things done in organizations. And even though it was written in 1991 and I was brand new and excited about learning about leadership, I think this book hit it right on the head. And the principles outlined in this book really do stand the test of time. And in the simplest of terms, the key to successful leadership is to master the art of influencing others, to empower those around you to achieve their highest potential, to achieve excellence. And we'll come back to that. But with the ability or opportunity or privilege to influence someone comes great responsibility, because our words and our actions plant the seeds in others either positively or negatively, and you never know when you might be influencing another person. And we can try to be intentional about it, but we don't always know when we're going to be influencing someone. And a quick story that I'll share. This was back in my manager days and doing hiring for the unit that I worked on, and had the opportunity to interview this bright young gal named Jody. And Jody was a college student, and she was studying something with exercise physiology, and wasn't sure exactly what she was going to go do. But she wanted to come work at the hospital, thought that'd be a great experience. And so Jody applied, and I hired her for that role. And patients and staff just raved about her work. She truly was an all-star. And so during her annual performance review, I celebrated her success and shared my opinion of, gosh, I know your career is headed in a certain direction, but "You would be an outstanding nurse, Jody." And she just kind of smiled and thanked me, and it was obvious she still had her own plan for her career. And so she thanked me, and then after graduation, she left the organization. And I didn't hear from her again for 18 years. And out of the blue, this wasn't all that long ago, I got an email from Jody, who was sharing with me that she had just finished her doctorate in nursing after being a staff nurse for over 12 years, and that she would be teaching nursing at a university in Minnesota. And she told me that my encouragement for her during her performance review made all the difference for her. And I literally had tears in my eyes as I sent back a reply of congratulations. And what came to my mind was I never imagined my words, especially during a performance review, could have such an impact. So leaders need impactful influence to motivate their teams, to help implement decisions, to get support for their vision, and to get the desired outcomes with grace and ease. Folks, it's much more important to positively influence someone than it is to impress them. If I could say that one more time, more important to positively influence someone than it is to impress them. It was mentioned in my introduction that I had the honor of being recognized by Crane's publication as a woman of influence in West Michigan. And so I was talking to my son and daughter-in-law about the award luncheon and inviting them to attend and explaining a little bit about what this recognition was all about. And my granddaughter, Ellery, overheard the conversation and she shouted, "Nana, you're an influencer." This is what she had in mind and what she understood influence to be. That's not the kind of influence I'm talking about here today. I think influence requires us to be our authentic self and to be who God has called us to be. One of my favorite quotes is by a leadership author and coach, Ken Blanchard, and he says, "The key to successful leadership is influence, not authority." And I think that underscores the point. So giving you some practically speaking advice, how do you positively influence people? These are the two things that have worked for me over the years, and I thought I might share them with you. So for me, it's to do two things: to instill belief and to empower. And then let me just dig into each of those just very briefly. On the instill belief piece, I think, and Travis talked about this during his presentation, our role as leaders is to engage our workforce, to get them to believe in themselves and to believe in the vision of the organization, to show them, to connect the dots for them on how their work makes a difference in the organization and allows us to achieve what we're trying to achieve. That's about belief. So two pieces of belief: believe in themselves and believe in what the organization's trying to do and how they can make that happen. The second practical advice is to empower your workforce. And I think empowerment's this buzzword that's been around a very long time. And quite honestly, I think it's too narrowly defined in most cases. Most people think of empowerment as giving someone autonomy, letting them go do your thing. You know what to do, go do it. And certainly that's part of it. You have to give people autonomy to fulfill their roles. But to me, it also includes more than that. It includes setting expectations together with them. It includes holding them accountable for what they're doing. It includes providing ongoing support. It includes mentoring them. It includes helping them learn from their mistakes. And it includes investing in them. So when we help others believe in themselves and we empower them, I think effective leadership makes a significant difference in an organization's culture. And so I want to talk a little bit more about culture now. So my story is over. We're going to talk a little bit about Holland Hospital. And I can speak about culture all day long, and you've heard about it from the other speakers as well. Very passionate about it. And I can tell you what I believe the Holland Hospital culture is. And I think I have a pretty good handle on it, but I think it's much more powerful to hear from a few members of our incredible team at Holland Hospital. And here are their perspectives on culture and making a difference.
I feel as though the culture is pretty high class myself. I enjoy working here with everybody. Everybody seems to be pretty happy with what they do and how they do stuff. I know I am. I enjoy landscaping as it is anyway. I've been here 15 years doing it, so I must like it. And it seems like most people are in a pretty good mood. I feel as though I make a big difference. Monday morning, I mean, you're coming in, you've had a long weekend, you really don't want to go to work, nobody wants to go on Monday, but you walk through and you see the landscaping and kind of lifts you up a little bit, the mums, the flowers, we put tulips up every year. In the winter, the sidewalks are clean and lots of salt to kill the grass so I can get the grass to grow next year. It's always something. Well, I get people who comment on it, a lot, and it's nice. Everything's pretty clean. I think that makes a difference.
I feel the culture at Holland Hospital is all about teamwork. It starts with the teams from the upper management all the way down to our volunteer systems. And I just feel that that's such a great asset here at Holland Hospital because nothing is beneath the managers, the directors. As a receptionist, I hear positive feedback from the people. They're just not a number in the system. I've worked here almost 15 years, and I think it's a privilege to be an employee at Holland Hospital. I love my job, and if I can make a difference in someone's day, that's my goal. I try to learn people's names, and you get to know the patients and visitors who come in on a regular basis, and they share their stories, and so lending an empathetic ear to them is very encouraging to them, and they just feel like they're in a safe place.
Holland Hospital, very friendly environment, and the staff is so good. Patient care is excellent. I know because I was a patient a year or so ago, so I know from that end, and I worked here too as well for 35 years, and now I volunteer. It's just a very friendly environment. Minute you walk in the door, I mean, you feel if there's any problems with direction, the employees or visitors, they can help you every step of the way and find where you need to be, help you in all different situations. I mean, that's why I volunteer now, just because, again, I worked here, I retired here last November, but I didn't want to stop because the environment here is just so great. Well secure, you can feel safe, you can just talk to everybody. It's a comfortable place to be, very, very comfortable. They're so family connected here. It's phenomenal, it is.
At Holland Hospital, our culture is built on gratitude for the work we get to do every day. When our people come to work, we know that we will be making a difference in the lives of others. Our culture is built on support from our administration and support for one another. I have often heard it said that Holland Hospital is like a family, and I believe that with my whole heart. Like family, we trust each other, we connect with each other, and we share a purpose that positively impacts the work we do. I make a difference at Holland Hospital as the leader of the Bovin Birth Center. I not only have the privilege of leading a team that delivers exceptional clinical care, but a team that also supports each other both personally and professionally. Just like family, the Bovin Birth Center team shows up for one another so that we can serve our communities during some of the most important moments in their lives. Work for me is never work. It is an honor, it is a calling, and I feel blessed every day to serve alongside the people at Holland Hospital.
I don't know about you, but I'm inspired by Bob and Sherry and Nicole and Randy. It's kind of emotional, more emotional than I thought it would be. I happened to be out of town when this was filmed. I submitted some names to our marketing team and said, just go out. I was going to be part of these videos. Just go out and ask people what they think about the culture and how they feel they make a difference in the organization. And so they did that in my absence. And when I returned back into town, back into work, I went and sought out each of those 4 people individually and thanked them for doing that. And again, the after story. So Bob, the landscaping guy, says to me, "Oh, but Patti, I forgot to say the most important thing." And I said, "Well, Bob, what was you did a great job. What was the most important thing?" Well, when I talked about the mums that we're planting, the color that we're using this year is called Patti Purple, and I should have told them that. And I said, "Well, that's okay. That's okay, Bob." And then I went and talked to Randy, and he's the individual there who worked for the organization, got a paycheck from the organization for over 30 years, and then left the organization and is now retired, or is now volunteering. And I said to Randy, "Thank you. You did such a great job on that video." And Randy, again, just let me thank you. For years you worked hard here, and now you're retired, and I still see you just as much as when you were actually an employee. And he's like, "Patti, I'm going to get to that 2,000 hours and get that 2,000-hour volunteer badge faster than anybody else has ever gotten it." And I'm, again, just humbled by that. And I talked to Sherry, and Sherry says, "Patti, can I ask you a favor? Can I just have a copy of that video? Because I was telling my children that I was doing a video, and they know, being on camera, that's just not my thing. I'm a behind-the-scenes kind of person. So I want to prove to them, that I could do this." I did that, and I said, "Absolutely, we'll do that for you." And she said, "I just can't wait to show them." And then Nicole, my dear friend Nicole, who we've worked together many years, who serves as the leader of our birth center, when she was asked to do this, she's like, "Well, of course. Oh, but wait. I need to get my hair done first. When are we going to be filming this? I want to look really good on that video," which she certainly does. So again, I'm truly inspired by these individuals, and these are the folks that really do the work at Holland Hospital and who really represent the culture. And I could have picked any number of our 2,500 employees and asked them to do this, and I think we'd have gotten a lot of the same things. So culture is very, very important, obviously, to us. And I'm going to talk about a little bit about the Holland Hospital story as it relates to culture. And I think the quote, "Culture eats strategy for lunch," just really hits home and underscores the value of having a strong culture in an organization. And I can honestly say, as it relates to the hospital, culture is our secret sauce. It's crucial and foundational to executing the strategy necessary to achieve our mission and our vision. So the hospital story on culture spans 5 decades. Don't worry, it's not going to take me that long to cover it. So in the early 80s, you heard I started in 1987, but in the early 80s, I really wasn't in tune much to the culture. I was a nurse working on the night shift, kind of doing my thing. I probably didn't even know who the CEO of the organization was at the time. But later, in retrospect, I certainly heard a bit more about it and learned a bit more about it. And what we found in the early 80s was that we had a very authoritarian leader who had a pretty big ego, is my understanding, ran solo, didn't inspire a shared vision. Relationships with others were not good, especially with our physicians, who are a critical piece of our healthcare delivery system. He didn't see relationships as being important. And it was quite a toxic culture. And from my understanding, everyone kind of just did the best they could, but there was certainly no team. People weren't rowing in the same direction. And so in the 1990s, we had a change in leadership. And the focus there for that leader, who did an amazing job, was really on healing. It was about relationships being rebuilt, and it was clear if you worked in the organizations in the 90s that people mattered. And there was a focus on community, and all of those were really good things. But on the other side of that, there really were not clear expectations of employees. Standards were not well defined. There was really not an accountability structure for results. And at that same time in the 90s, that's when healthcare was shifting from being purely healthcare to being a business as well. And so while there were some good things happening, there was also some things missing in our culture. And to her great credit, that leader said, I think I've taken the organization as far as it can go. We need somebody with a different skill set and a new direction. And she found her own successor. I mean, that's really quite a remarkable story and truly a testament to her. And she said, a new leader, new ideas will help get us to where we need to be. Because I think we were at one end of the pendulum, with the toxic culture, and then it kind of swung all the way to the other end, and we needed something a bit different. And so if you look at the years between 2001 and 2007, I joined the executive team in 2001. And together with a new CEO and another vice president colleague, we spent a lot of time talking about what do we want to be for the community. And what we wanted to be was excellent, because that's what we thought our community deserved. And we thought the best way to get at that was through the people who do the job, and to do that by building a new culture. And so that's what we did, and it took a long time to do it. And there are many pieces to cultural transformation. Again, we could spend all afternoon, don't worry, I won't, on that. But if I can narrow it down to maybe a few points for you, this is for us what cultural transformation was about. It was about setting a clear vision. It was about building a new leadership team. It was about, to use Travis's Jim Collins' Good to Great book, it was about getting the right people on the bus and in the right seat. It was about setting high expectations of everyone in the organization. And it was about ensuring accountability for outcomes and for our performance. And it was about celebrating success. If we jump ahead to 2007, our division of nursing, I was the chief nurse officer at the time, we earned magnet status for excellence in nursing. And this audience won't know what magnet status is, but we were only the second hospital in Michigan to achieve that designation. And that designation is all about excellence. And so for us, it was kind of a watershed moment. We believed we had established a highly engaged workforce who wouldn't settle for anything other than being the best. It was a validation of some of the cultural work that we had done. And that cultural shift didn't happen just in nursing. That is our largest FTE count in the organization. But in the entire organization, we saw a cultural shift. And it took 7+ years to make the major shift. And we're still working on it today. It takes time. As we went through the 2010 to 2020 period, we continued to raise the bar and to strengthen that culture. I think the next phase of what that means was to really have focus and discipline. Don't chase what others are doing. Stay focused on what you're doing. Be disciplined about it. Stay your own course. And during that time, and the gentleman who introduced me talked about some of our awards and accolades. It was during that decade that we certainly had many recognitions that we were extremely proud of. But beyond the little trophy case, the little trophy they send you to put in your trophy case, was leadership understanding that that's nice, that's affirmation, but what goes into that is that we're serving our community well. And that is where culture makes all the difference. Then Joe mentioned this in 2020, for healthcare, we had kind of a big deal happen, right? And so for the next 3 years, because it took healthcare that long to really kind of move beyond the COVID pandemic and all the effects that that had on our delivery system. And we were pretty much in survival mode. But I remember in discussions with our leadership team, we talked a lot about, we just got to get through day to day, right? Make sure we're here for our community when they need us during the midst of this pandemic. But at all costs, let's protect the culture. And that was an intentional conversation. And how do you do that in the midst of great turmoil? In 2022 and beyond, where we are today, we, like you and your businesses, live in a very uncertain environment. And our focus continues to be on ensuring that our culture continues to thrive despite the headwinds of change that we face. It's time for strong, steady, consistent leadership and developing new strategies that are flexible and evolve over time. It's harder to be a leader than it used to be. I really believe that's true, and yet I still wouldn't want to do it anywhere else. So Eric had said, talk about the struggles. I talked about that 7-year, it took a long time to do it. There were many struggles on the way as you think about changing culture. Took a lot of time, and there was impatience among some, like me. There were steps forward and then steps backward because we're dealing with human nature. There's a great deal of weight to decisions when you're doing cultural shift because you're making decisions about people who may no longer fit your organizational culture, and you may need to move them on or move them to a different seat on the bus, as Travis talked about. When you're dealing with people's livelihoods, that's a tough weight to bear, and yet you know cultural change needs to happen, and so there's sometimes tough human resource decisions that are made along the way. There were many Monday morning quarterbacks judging our efforts, including some of our own employees, right? What in the world are they doing? And it can be hard to focus at times on the good of the whole when you're making decisions that affect one. And as a leader, you got to keep the bigger organization in perspective. So doing the right thing isn't always easy. And I encourage you, don't give up, because in this cultural transformation, as we got to the end of it, and we're still, as I said, building on it today, but leadership and culture makes a difference. And it's worth that effort. It's worth that pain. It's worth that struggle. What was the phrase my son said to me the other day? Mom, is the juice worth the squeeze? I think when it comes to culture, the juice is worth the squeeze. So keep focusing on that. And I'll finish with digging into culture just a little bit more by sharing what we call our 4 C's. Travis put up there their own values and expectations of the culture, but I thought this might be helpful, and I won't go fully into it, and if anyone has questions about it, you're certainly welcome to email me, and I'm happy to share the entire piece of this with you. But this is what we call the values and expectations of our culture. And so every single person in the organization, no matter what role you're in, is held to the same standards. And so when you as an employee get your performance review at the end of a year, half of your performance review score is based on how you perform the job you were hired to do. We call those the essential functions, the tasks, the duties, the responsibilities. They're all defined. This is what we need you to accomplish. And half of your score relates to how you do that. The other half of your score is about how you perform in terms of respecting, embracing, and valuing the cultural expectations. So it's a 50-50 split. You know, I remember back in the day, when I was first on orientation. I know I'm old, but I can still remember things long ago. What happened yesterday, I don't. But I can remember when I was on orientation as a new staff nurse. And my manager said to me, we're going to put you with nurse, I'll call her Sue. Nurse Sue, she is absolutely the best nurse. And after 2 days with Sue, I'm like, I don't know that I'm going to make this. I think she was kind of downright nasty. And so later I started talking to some of the other employees about, you know, our boss told me Sue's the greatest person to learn from. And they're like, well, that's because Sue is the best one at starting IVs. And I thought, wow, is the what we do more important than the how we do it? And apparently, in this manager's mind, you know, your ability to start IVs was much more important than how you treated the people you were working with. So this is about the how you do your job. And we have a pretty robust list of expectations for that for our teams. And they embrace those. And it's why you see the people that you saw in the video being so successful. So under customer service, there are bullets like placing the customer's needs first, showing genuine interest and respect of others, that you have a positive attitude in all your interactions, that you act as a role model when there's times that you have to do service recovery. We're all about customer service. The second is communication. And the things we're held accountable to are communicating verbally and non-verbally, with openness, with honesty, and with tact. That we actively listen to understand one another, not to respond, to understand. That we resolve conflicts constructively, that we deliver clear and concise verbal and written messages. Commitment means that we strive for the highest quality in all of our efforts, that we achieve our annual goals, that we continuously improve our skills and competencies, and that we show up for work and we're flexible in what the organization needs from us in terms of the hours we work. And then on the creativity side, we offer suggestions and solutions in a positive manner. We're receptive and responsive to and embrace change. We're accountable and responsible for our own decisions, and we recognize and celebrate success. And I truly believe our staff has embraced these values and expectations, and that really has been critical to our success. As a leader in your own organizations, identify, if you haven't done that already, the expectations and the values that you require for success in your business. I think that's the fundamental role of a leader. So my last slide, just some final thoughts with you. In Luke 12:48, it says, "To whom much is given, much is required." Those of us who've been blessed with talents or knowledge, influence, or opportunities have a greater responsibility to use those gifts to benefit others. And a person's position creates a corresponding expectation of stewardship, back to your comment, and accountability for the gifts they've been given. As a leader, I've been given much, and there's much to be expected of me. I am called to make a difference. Thank you today. I appreciate it.
Patti, I want you to know that you terrified me with one of your earlier slides. You did, and I'm going to tell you why, because I need to decompress in a group of friends. I wrote it down so that I could get the phrasing right. One of the slides started off saying, mastering the art of influencing others. And I'm going to say when 90% of people say that, what they mean is how to get you to do what I want you to do for me. And I know I've got full trust. I knew that's not how it was going to end, but thank you so much for the grace of putting on that same slide your definition of that, which was, and this is why I wanted to write it down, empower those around you to achieve their highest potential, to achieve excellence. And when we as Christians talk about influencing others, that's the kind of influence that we ought to have. And that influence comes through our words. Our universe, all of creation was spoken into existence through the word of God. And I believe that as creatures made in the image of God, our words have that power. The same power that 18 years later someone can come to you and say, what you said to me in that review shaped my career. It helped me articulate and identify my passions, my interests, this area of fulfillment. Words have that power. And I want to share a really quick story. A few months ago, I was talking to a friend of mine that I had worked with in my previous company a couple years back. And just a few months ago, he was wrestling with accepting a position of leadership within this company. And he said, Josh, I'm not a leader. Now, for context, this was in the new construction world, so we talked a little more rough. I said, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard you say. That's so dumb. You're a leader. You don't have a leader title. You might not have some of the leader responsibilities, but I've never seen you walk into a room and not lead people. And I'll be honest with you, because I love you, sometimes when you lead people, it's super positive. And then when you're in a bad mood, when you lead people, it's super negative and it's super bitter. But don't fool yourself. You are a leader. You are leading the people around you. You are influencing the people around you. Now you're just being given an opportunity to refine that, to have a direction for that, to be intentional with that. You're having the opportunity to do that in a positive, objective way, but you're already a leader. And I want to challenge everyone in this room with that same thing. No matter what you think, you are already leading. It's not an if, it's not a when. The question is how. How are you going to choose to lead today? As Virgil challenged us, who is our one? As Patti had on one of that latest slides, I think the one right before this, one person can make a difference. That's the theme of our conference. As we leave here today after lunch and after our fellowship, who is the one person today where you're going to use your words to speak into their lives? Let's reflect that call. Let's take that call from our God seriously.